The person who shattered you suddenly comes back like nothing ever happened. Why? It's not love. It's not guilt. It's something far more disturbing, a deep, obsessive need to control your emotions. In this video, Keanu Reeves exposes the dark side of relationships no one dares to talk about. A truth that hits home for millions who've ever been ghosted, heartbroken, or left behind. If you've ever received that random message after months of silence, this video holds the answer you didn't know you needed. Stay until the end, because once you understand this, you'll never be manipulated the same way again. A relationship is never just about love or companionship. Beneath the surface lies a delicate game of human psychology, power, validation, and emotional dependency. When someone leaves, especially after wounding us, we try to convince ourselves that they're gone for good, that it's over, that we've moved on. But then something strange happens. They return, not with grand gestures, not with apologies or beautiful words. Sometimes it's just a message, like in an old photo, a random question months later, sometimes even a year, and suddenly we're left sitting there, heart quietly spiraling, wondering, why? Do they regret it? Are they lonely? Or do they simply want to know that we're still there, still tethered to them in some invisible way? Because not every return is about love. Sometimes it's just about needing to feel important to someone again. And that's when we realize a relationship is never just about feelings. It's a mirror reflecting everything we are. To truly understand why someone comes back after walking away, we first need to understand human nature, especially how each person experiences and processes relationships differently. Biologically and psychologically, humans are wired for emotional and social connection. Since primitive times, survival has depended on the ability to bond, to build trust, and to maintain lasting relationships. That means even when someone chooses to leave, it's rarely possible for them to completely sever emotional ties in a clean, final way. The human heart doesn't move in a straight line. Not everyone can tuck pain into a corner and move on as if nothing ever happened. We live through emotional cycles, moments of strength, moments of weakness, times when we think we've forgotten, only to suddenly remember without warning. And it's that quiet curve in their emotions that brings them back. Not because the love never ended, but because the feelings were never truly closed. Someone wanting to rekindle a relationship with you isn't always driven by guilt over what they've done. In fact, sometimes they don't even fully understand why they've come back. Most of the time, the reason lies deeper. They're trying to test something to see if they still have control over you. Can they still make your heart flutter like it once did? Because deep within every human being is a powerful need to feel recognized, to be reassured that we once mattered to someone, that our presence left a mark. And for someone who returns after hurting you, it's not necessarily an apology. It's a way to soothe their own ego, to confirm that they still exist in your mind, that they can still touch the emotions you once gave them. It's not remorse. It's the need to hear, even in silence, I still matter to you. And sometimes that need hurts more than the original pain they caused. But this is exactly where so many people stumble. They mistake the return of someone who once hurt them as a sign of remorse, a longing for a second chance to make things right. And because of that mistaken belief, they fall right back into the emotional cycle they had fought so hard to escape. Someone can come back wearing the mask of regret, wrapped in nostalgia, bringing up sweet memories as if they truly cherished the past. They might send a simple message, ask how you've been, as if the pain never happened. But in truth, they're testing your reaction. They're checking if you've moved on, or if you're still trapped in the hurt they left behind. And if your response is longing, softness, or hope, then they've regained control. Not because they genuinely want to start over, but because they need to know they still hold power over you. This isn't the return of sincerity, it's the return of emotional power disguised as care. But that doesn't mean you should adopt a negative view of everyone who wants another chance at reconnecting with you. More often than not, even they aren't fully aware of what they're doing. Their actions come from an internal conflict between the feeling of loss and the need for emotional safety. Humans have an innate desire for clear endings, something that gives them a sense of control over their emotions, just like how we need a solid period to close the final sentence of a chapter. But the difference lies here. For some people, closure isn't about truly ending things. It's about feeling like I can come back if I want to. That's why they show up again and walk back into your life, even if they've moved on to new relationships, even if it seems like their life has already turned a new page. They're not necessarily returning to revive the past, but to confirm that the connection hasn't fully ended. But the story doesn't end there. At the heart of it all is the fear of truly losing someone. Many people walk away believing they can always come back, convinced that the one they left behind will keep waiting, will hold on to the same feelings forever. But then one day, they sense a shift. The other person no longer reacts, no longer hurts, no longer waits. And that moment sends them into panic, because now their return isn't about control anymore. It's about fear. Fear that the chance to salvage the relationship is gone. Fear that this time they've truly lost something that once belonged to them. And that panic, that realization, sometimes comes far too late. People don't come back because they miss you. They come back because they miss the feeling of security, knowing you were always there, ready, patient, and still holding space for them. But the moment you remove that safety, everything shifts. And that's where self-mastery becomes more important than ever. If you let your emotions depend on someone else's validation, if you keep searching for closure or answers from the very person who hurt you, you'll stay trapped in the same cycle. But when you understand this psychological pattern and stand firmly in your own worth, you become the one in control. The answer to why someone comes back after hurting you doesn't lie in them. It lies in you, in how you respond, in how you move forward, in how you rise above the need to be validated by someone else. Once you truly understand that, you stop waiting for their return. You stop searching for answers from someone who already gave you one through their actions. You simply walk away. And in that quiet, powerful act of walking away, you become the person who no longer needs to ask why. Human relationships are far more complex than we often wish they were. They're not built solely on love, loyalty, or mutual respect. Beneath it all lies a quiet psychological game, a search for recognition and a subtle balance of power. This doesn't mean every interaction is calculated or manipulative, but rather the human nature is wired to seek self-worth through the gaze and reactions of others. And nowhere is this truth more evident than in the way people handle breakups and the emotional ties that linger afterward. At the core of human nature lies a deep desire to be seen, to be valued. From an evolutionary standpoint, social recognition was once a matter of survival. Being accepted by the tribe meant protection, belonging, and a higher chance of staying alive. But to be cast out, to be ignored or excluded, was to face isolation, which in primitive times often meant death. Though we no longer live in tribes, that primal need for recognition remains deeply rooted in our psyche. We need to know that we matter, that our presence leaves a mark on others. And it's this quiet, persistent need, the longing to be acknowledged, that subtly shapes every relationship we enter. And this is where the quiet force of power begins to take hold. In every relationship, whether it's love or friendship, there's always an unspoken tug of war over influence. Who cares more? Who holds the upper hand? Who can walk away without looking back? And who is left behind, waiting? These questions, though seemingly small, are what shape the entire emotional landscape of your connection. When someone chooses to walk away, especially after causing pain, they're often testing the extent of their influence. The ability to leave and still linger in someone's heart, to stir their emotions from afar, is a subtle form of power. That's why so many people return after hurting someone. Not because they've suddenly realized their mistakes, but because deep down they're searching for one thing: confirmation that they still matter. They want to know, am I still in your thoughts? Can I still reach your heart the way I used to? And if the answer is yes, then whether they realize it or not, they've just reclaimed a piece of that power. They've validated their worth through your reaction. This isn't necessarily a cruel act or a calculated manipulation. It's often a primal response to the fragility of human connection. Deep within all of us is a fear of being forgotten. We all want to believe we left a mark, that our presence once meant something, that we're not so easily erased from someone's memory. That's why some people come back after months, even years, not with grand gestures or tearful apologies, but with a simple message, a casual "how have you been?" or a comment that seems almost accidental. Because for them, it's not about reigniting the old relationship. It's about confirming that they still exist in your world, that they haven't completely vanished. And sometimes, just one response from you is enough to bring them comfort, to reassure them that they still hold some kind of meaning, however small, in the corners of your mind. If you don't fully understand the psychological mechanism, it's easy to mistake their return as a sign of remorse, of love, of realization, a belief that they've come back because they finally see the damage they caused and genuinely want to make things right. But in reality, most of these returns are nothing more than a form of emotional self-defense, an unconscious attempt to reaffirm their own worth. And the moment you respond with attention, with emotion, with a flicker of hope or longing, you've unknowingly given them exactly what they were searching for, confirmation that they still hold power over you. In that moment, you lose control of the situation. You're pulled back into the old cycle, where once again, you're reacting to the emotions they create, not the ones you choose. Understanding this truth doesn't mean you have to become bitter or hold on to resentment. It simply means you learn to see relationships with greater clarity and emotional maturity. It's the moment you stop seeking your worth in someone else's eyes. It's when you begin building your confidence from within, no longer needing validation from anyone. Because in any relationship, the one who holds the greatest power isn't the one who chases, nor the one who returns, but the one who remains unmoved. The one who doesn't need to prove anything, because they've long understood their own value. And that quiet strength, that calm that doesn't need to be spoken, is the real power. You don't need to be cold. You just need to be strong enough not to get pulled back into the same emotional storm. When you stand firm in your self-worth, you don't just escape the invisible game of control. You reclaim the freedom and peace you've always deserved. When you truly understand this, you no longer feel confused or shaken when someone who once hurt you suddenly returns. You stop viewing their comeback as a validation of your worth. Instead, you see it for what it really is, a moment of uncertainty within them, an unconscious test to see if they still have an effect on you. And when you recognize that, you gain not only clarity, but something far more powerful than their attention, the power of choice. You have the right to ask yourself, does their presence still hold any meaning in my life now? Emotional attachment is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. It binds two people with a thread that logic alone can't fully explain, often leading us to act against our own best interests. When someone has emotionally invested in another person, that bond doesn't simply disappear when the relationship ends. It lingers quietly, deeply, shaping thoughts, emotions, and behaviors long after the two have parted ways. That's why so many people struggle to let go, why old memories resurface so often, and why some return to relationships they once chose to leave. Not because the love still lives, but because the emotions were never truly healed. But once you understand this, you stop letting your emotions drive your life and start becoming the one who leads it. At the heart of emotional attachment lies humanity's innate need for connection. From the moment we are born, we crave comfort, safety, and recognition from others. As children, that attachment is directed toward our caregivers, the first people who shape our emotional foundation and sense of self. As we grow, that same need extends to friends and, eventually, to romantic relationships. When we invest in another person, sharing experiences, emotions, and even our wounds, our identity slowly blends with theirs. That's why, after a breakup, the pain isn't just about losing them. It's also about losing a part of ourselves. And beneath all those emotions lies a deeper fear, the fear of true loss. When someone walks away, they might convince themselves they're in control, that leaving was a conscious decision made from logic. But the truth is, while their mind may have walked away, a part of their heart never really did. Because no one can easily cut off a bond that once held their heart, their hopes, and even their sense of identity. And that's why when the person they left behind begins to heal, starts to rediscover themselves, to move on, the one who walked away begins to feel uneasy. Not because they want to return and fall in love all over again, but because they're beginning to realize they no longer have control over what they once thought would always belong to them. In the end, what truly matters is how you choose to rise, not how they choose to return. Pain changes people, but can also shape powerful motivation. If someone walked away and then came back, don't just ask why. Ask what it taught you about yourself. Every relationship, even the painful ones, can be a mirror, showing us where we need to grow, heal, and reclaim our worth. So don't wait for closure from them. Become your own closure. If this message touched something deep inside you, subscribe, and remember, you are stronger than the past.